How's everyone feeling today?
Good.
Good. You ready to go on a little journey with me? How many of you were at the weekend conference on Saturday? Just so I have a sense. So there's only a few of you. I did a bit of an opener for 20 minutes at the conference, and so I just want to make sure it's not so repetitive. So I've added some slides and some things I think are interesting to give you a little history lesson and acclimate us. And just for context, I am the CEO of Rogue Workforce Partnership, which is our region's workforce investment board. And won't go into all of that, but I have a background working with entrepreneurs and incubators, investors, and I do think entrepreneurs might save the world. So I'm quite primed for this conversation and what the future holds and what changes we're likely to see. Although none of us have a crystal ball. I'm not a futurist, but I kind of play one on TV sometimes. And I do pay attention, and I really love this stuff. So I promise to go through these pretty quickly. If you need clarifying questions, ask, but we'll do questions at the end mostly, just in the sake of time, so we can have a really great conversation. So. The title of this talk is The Future of Work is Human, and I would say some of the slides that I have in here and some of the content is actually from a talk I've done for the last couple of years called The Future of Work and the Coming Paradigm Shift, and I switched that title because the paradigm shift is happening. So it's not a future paradigm shift anymore, we're in it. So I want to talk about and focus on humans. So first, I want to, turn this on, and talk about our thought process as humans a little bit. So every month, the estimate is that we go through about 60,000 different thoughts, or different thoughts a day. So 60,000 thoughts run through our minds. And even as we're doing, how many thoughts do you think you've thought since you woke up this morning? Many, 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 many thoughts, right? Our minds are busy. The estimate is about 3,000 thoughts an hour. So we've had a lot of them already today, given that it's 7 at night. And this is the human consciousness, right? We are self-powered question askers. And how do we do that more and more? Hi, come on in, have a seat. So the beautiful swirling, twirling abilities of questions and interest and curiosity that we bring with us, I want you to sit with that as we talk about technology and artificial intelligence in that, okay? This is a AI-generated image of an AI, and when you're not asking them a question, what is an artificial intelligence bot thinking about? And they're not thinking about anything. So they're not engaged in algorithms or predictive analytics or any of that until you ask them a question, and then it engages with you, right? So this is where we're at today. And I think the difference between our self-powered generative question answering minds and that mind, which is reactive to us, is really creating a paradigm shift, and I think it's exciting to talk about, but I want to define what a paradigm shift is. So this AI told me that a paradigm shift is a time when the usual and accepted way of doing or thinking about something changes completely. And paradigm shifts are often uncomfortable, and they challenge our very habits and paradigms and things that we do day to day. Why do we do the things we do? They force us to question. They force us to challenge our own belief systems. So I want to acknowledge also that this is also a really troubling time. There's a lot of unknowns, and that's in the atmosphere as we talk about these subjects. So I want to go through a few tech trends to level set us about where we're at with artificial intelligence, and I want to use a parallel for when the personal computer, how many were around before the personal computer? So you were here when this rolled out. So here's a little bit of a very high level bunch of milestones in the development of the personal computer. Often people credit Ada Lovelace, 1848, for writing sort of the first computer program. And, in 41, there was a lot of language, sort of fully automated computer development and just thinking, which is, 100 years. So let's, for 100 years, we experimented with sort of really low-tech versions of this, and then it really caught fire. So in 1971, Intel released its first commercial microprocessor, and 2 years later, Martin Cooper of Motorola made the first mobile phone call. So that feels a little earlier than we think of, right, for most people. And 1975, the Altair 8800 was the first retail PC to be sold, and that was for $439. And the very next year, Apple released its first motherboard, and its 8-bit motherboard sold for $666. We don't have to go down a spiral about why they chose that number. But the next year, TRS-80 had Radio Shack. Who remembers Radio Shacks? They used to have actually pretty advanced technology in those places, and that was in 77. And 1981, you've got IBM finally with the first kind of architecture on a personal computer. And then Osborne was released that same year, and then a decade later, so I'm skipping far ahead, Tim Berners-Lee launched the first online website, which was CERN. I don't know if any of you know that. So CERN is not new. 1993, America Online, who had an AOL email address, those very first email addresses. And then next year, Netscape Navigator was your first real web browser that was available to use. And then scan way forward another decade or more, and Apple released the iPhone 1, the first version of their smartphone, and we take all of that and put it in our pocket, and you know where we are now, which is even farther beyond. So with AI, I just want to give a few milestones too, because it seems like this came overnight in the last few years, but in fact it didn't. So 1950, Alan Turing, have you ever heard of the Turing test? This Alan Turing to evaluate machine intelligence, that was in 1950. 6 years later, the first AI patent happened in Dartmouth at the university for a research project. The next year, the first neural network was called Perception. That was launched. Another little jump later, ELIZA was a natural language processor that was created. Another decade later, the first AI-generated software was called Aaron. And in 1980, 6 years later, the first national conference, 1980, on artificial intelligence happened. And in 1997, IBM Deep Blue defeated the world chess champion. Do you all remember that? That was like, sort of front page news for a long time. And in 2006, the term deep learning was first introduced. And 2011, Watson won Jeopardy, another big headline. And Google acquired DeepMind Technologies in 2014. GPT-1 was introduced by OpenAI in 2018, but that was kind of a beta, not really open to the public. But then in 2023, Microsoft invested $13 billion into OpenAI, and then we have seen it spread like wildfire, I would say, since then. So with that little bit of a history lesson, what is artificial intelligence? So, and I'm not a technologist, right? There's some technologists in the room. I am not one. So if you have deep, technical questions, I'm not the one to answer them. But this helped me understand it. So computer systems that turn data and information into knowledge is just basically artificial intelligence. And they're programs that normally require some level of human intelligence, so they can do visual perception, speech recognition, they can make decisions, and they can also do language translation and a whole host of other things that we're just innovating every single day. What we use most, how many of you have used ChatGPT or others? I mean, most everybody in the room. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's like a little pre-trained bot. So it's not exactly what we might think of as broad artificial intelligence that's gonna take over the world like iRobot or The Matrix or something. It's a little more contained than that. We also started playing with generative AI, which is what made a lot of the images that you see in my presentation. So what it's great at is speed. I mean, how many of you marvel at just asking it a question and it can sort of digest all of the volumes of philosophy ever written in about 30 seconds and give you the top 10 themes, right? It's really amazing. It's really fast, but it doesn't go very deep. right? It needs our questions, it needs our prompts, it needs us to take it on a journey and help it break through some of what it does and doesn't know, because it has been trained on a data set that we gave it. So really it's a mirror of us, right? It has access to the internet now, and it's getting more up to date. But it won't go deep on its own. You have to get it there. And it gives you a lot of statistics, but it won't really give you causality. It won't really understand why anything is the way it is yet. That's probably coming. Bias in and bias out. This is true with anything, but if you ask it all the reasons why coffee is bad for you, it will tell you all the reasons coffee is bad for you, and vice versa. So you have to be clear about asking objective questions if you want objective answers. And then it recognizes patterns, but it doesn't recognize meaning, obviously. So I want to talk about OpenAI because that's ChatGPT and DALL-E and a lot of these other Sora and all of these softwares, and people are writing a bunch of bots within this. And so I want to just, this was what really cracked the AI market open to the public. And it was actually founded in December of 2015. And it wasn't founded by the sort of little kind of nerdy coder guys sitting in their garage. Okay, this was founded by a bunch of billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires who have founded and done tech companies. You can tell the last guy's done a few things on the list. And so these are very savvy business people who have launched and sold and spun out and grown companies before. They would have to be, because you need access to a lot of data to train one of these, right? So DALL-E was launched in 2021, ChatGPT in 2022. And in 2019, Microsoft invested their first $1 billion in OpenAI, and it was followed by an additional 10, and they've got a couple more billion on the table to invest there. And that was all in an effort to create this as an add-on to a lot of their software, Copilot. Have any of you used this? Do you use Office programs and things like that? So I want to talk about data for a minute, because I did mention that these are trained on really, really large data sets. And the global data sphere is expected to grow from 33 zettabytes in 2018 to 175 zettabytes in 2025. Any of you have a handle on what a zettabyte is? Well, let me show you, because it's a really fun number. So zettabyte is that number of bytes, 10 to the 21st bytes. So if 1 zettabyte was equivalent to a kilometer, then it would be 1,300 round trips to the moon and back compared to a terabyte. So we have, 4 or 5 terabyte hard drives and you're feeling pretty good, maybe bigger. Zettabyte is a substantial number. So you have exabytes, petabytes, terabytes is down here, and on and on and on. So it's a really, really large number. You take that number by 175 as an estimate. We're talking about data that I think storage and processing of humans could never, ever do by ourselves. So on some level, we need these technologies to make sense of any of that. What do you think that most of this data is? What do you think's in there? I don't have a solid answer for this, but pictures, data. A lot of it's industrial data, back-end data, sets and things like that, right? But a lot of it is us. It's us. It's social media data. It's the stuff that they sort of buy and sell that they've been collecting for a long time on our cell phones and tracking behavior and GPS and all these kinds of things. Not to freak everybody out, but there's a lot of data. And it includes our behavior. And so automation seems like, this is coming. Does it make anyone feel uncomfortable that there's not a driver in that giant semi barreling down a highway? It may surprise you to know that in the Nevada roads, this Daimler autonomous vehicle has been driving all by itself since 2015. So we're a decade in. And, in New Zealand, the first pizza was delivered by drones. I'm not sure that necessarily drones are gone. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to talk about drones, actually. But this was first piloted and done in New Zealand in 2016, so similar time frame. How many of you been to San Francisco or Phoenix or any big city? Has anyone ridden in one of these? These are Waymos. They're taxis. They're autonomous taxis, and they're covered in these sensors, and they're intimidating. Like actually, seeing drive around, and it's interesting. I went to San Francisco and I saw these driving around, and I really like this stuff, and I still got a little freaked out by it. They're driving around, and you see someone in the passenger seat looking at their phone or reading a book, and there's no one in the driver's seat, and they're just driving around the city. So it's really interesting. They started at the Phoenix airport. They were piloted as taxis. And that first one was driving around in 2018. So they've been on the road a long time. You'll see more and more and more of these. Does anyone have a Tesla that has that self-automated driving? Those are right on the road today. I took a ride with a friend, and she goes, "Oh, look, I'll just have it drive us." And I'm like, no, you won't. No. And at the conference, I think it's funny, Paul said something about, at what point are we going to switch from being scared that there's no driver to being scared that there is a human driver behind the seat, right? When does that transition happen? So I want to talk about this image a little bit. This was a really early mid-journey image years ago that I asked it a question, and I've gone down the rabbit hole a lot with generative AI, just asking it what it is and who it is and everything else. So, I asked it a question, and they give you these four options as outputs. So, they're all similar, right? There's a figure leaving a closed environment and looking at a cloudy sky, and it's opening up into something. Any guesses on what I might have asked it? So I asked it to draw its own self-image. Its own self-image. So, that's interesting, right? Processing data, okay, but sometimes when we start getting into the esoteric and the artistic, and it start writing poems and things like that, it's a bit of a different experience. So I also asked it to write a poem, and I'm going to go over here if I can and see if I can read it. I know I'm getting really close to this. In the shadowed halls of Future's Keep, where silicon dreams and datas sleep, a whisper stirs, a soft glow hums as the wheel of progress slowly turns. In circuits maze and wires thrall, the ghost of innovation calls. It hums a tune of change and chance, where robots dance an eerie dance. Yet fear not the march of the machine, for it brings a world we've never seen, a world where toil is left behind and brighter thoughts engage the mind. In the embrace of tech's expanse, we find a strange yet hopeful stance. The future's work is not of strain, but of ideas that break the chain. So let the eerie be our guide to a future where we all abide, where technology lifts us high above and work is driven by our love. The future's bright, do not dismay, for in this tech we find our way. A path that's lit with spectral light leads us to a world that's just and right. I just said write an eerie poem about the future of technology. This is what it gave me. So I didn't overprocess it. But it's pulling, so it seems so elegant and clever. If you've written music or you've done art and you're like, gosh, this is fascinating. But really it's pulling from ideas that all come from us. It's just really good at putting them together. So I want to talk about trust, though, in that equation. How do we trust these systems? How do we trust what we're seeing? This was an image that was widely spread through social media. Oh my gosh, her dress is amazing. It's Katy Perry at the Met Gala. Only it's just an AI image. She wasn't there. She didn't go. It wasn't a dress. Wasn't real. But yet, it got thousands, millions of comments, and everybody engaged with it, and everybody thought, wow, this is amazing. This is real. And yeah, it isn't. If you look really closely, you can tell. You can look in the back and see the faces. It's gotten better. I just want to share a little bit about this trust index. This one's about a year old, but it's a global. It's called the Edelman Trust Index. And it's more around economics and things like that, but it's really talking about which countries, right, which regions, and you might find this interesting to see some themes here, but which regions generally tend to trust their governments. And it's not just governments, it's also technology and media and a variety of things, right? But do they trust what they're being told? And the ones in the red really don't that much trust what they're being told. And you can see where the United States is. The first one is 2022 and 2023. US goes a little bit up right into, but we're not a totally trusting country. Whereas you can see the ones up at the top that have a sort of different government structure and different media, and they tend to either trust their government or trust them so little that they're not willing to say that they don't. One of the two. So this is just interesting, right? I just want to give you some macro trends around the world of work and what's happening and what's on the radar. So World Economic Forum says by 2025, which is now, which I think they missed the mark a bit on that, 83 million jobs would be displaced by technology advances. So this is global, right? Not just in the United States, 83 million. They also predicted that 97 million new jobs would be created. They would just be different, right, than the jobs that were lost. And I think that is the going, what do we do in that shift, right? As people go from doing this to doing this. For me, when we do workforce development and training and education, what should young people be looking at? What can we all do? This shift is gonna make us stand up and pay attention. I want to talk a little bit about generations, because we're talking about there's also a shift. We're not just seeing one thing. We're seeing many shifts, from population shifts to technology shifts to demographic and economic shifts. But the generations, I'll start with baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. And these are all AI images, and I love these people. So I love them. Baby boomers tended to be really hardworking, head down, get it done. They came from an environment where there was a 30-year pension and where you did rise up the ranks and pay your dues, and work was work, and you went home and you lived your life at home. And so they often, this generation can be very, very dedicated. And in fact, in 2022 during COVID, the largest growing portion of the workforce were baby boomers coming back in from retirement. So large generation, outsized portion of the workforce, and have created a lot of the economic infrastructure that we use today, right? If you think about it, built so much of this stuff. So Gen X, Gen X is sort of that lost, I feel like forgotten generation. I hail from Gen X, I will say. 1965 to 1980. This generation, we're like your latchkey kids. We weren't exactly sure where our baby boomer parents were. They probably were working all the time, but we knew to come in when the streetlights went on, and we kind of raised ourselves in some way. So we tend to be really questioning and innovative. We challenge, and we have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. We also seek efficiency and innovation, but we're also kind of a small generation. So we're like that generation that's never really going to take over and dominate the workforce. Then we have millennials. Millennials, I feel like, got so much press and got really a bad rap because they're so different than the baby boomers. We're like that transition generation, but the millennials come into the workforce, and they're the first generation who were raised. So if you think about the Gen X is the first PC generation, right? We're playing Ataris, and we had like IBM computers and things like that. We have millennials who were the first web generation. They grew up with websites and Google, and they could search things, and they could mine this World Wide Web for information. So they tend to, interestingly, seek meaningful work. They want to grow their creative skills. They're obviously technology savvy, but they seek meaning and purpose in what they're doing. So some of the odds of just go to work, pay your dues, get the job done, trade your time for money that the boomers had created, the millennials came in and said, no, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to own a house. I don't want to own a car. I don't want a white picket fence. I don't want to have 2 kids and a dog, and I don't want all that stuff. So there were odds there, and I think there was a spirit that came with that of almost gamification. So if it takes me 4 hours to do a job, and my counterpart, my equal, takes 8 hours to do that job, not only should I not get paid less, I should get paid more because I did it faster and I did it better. So when you trade your time for dollars and hours, you know, if you make $20 an hour and so does he got paid, you know, you see what I'm saying. So it really caused a lot of disruption for businesses. And then we've got Gen Z. These are my kiddos. Gen Z is still not a huge part of the workforce, but they're their first smartphone generation, right? Most of them were raised with a really elegant touchscreen full of apps and pretty colors and social media. You could call them the social media generation too, but they tend to be broad and innovative thinkers. They actually really prioritize truth, oddly, if you think about how kind of fake social media and the internet can feel sometimes with filters and fake news and all the things. This generation really, if you're not sure if something's real or not, I would definitely ask a Gen Z person because they can tell. They've grown to spot filters and fake things. They'll design and they'll go figure out if it's real or not. That's a real superpower they have. And they're also connected really globally because they've been on the internet since they were born. So this shift is happening, and what it's doing to the workforce over time, you can see this is 2006 versus 2026, and we're almost here. That gray bar, that's the only one I really want to draw your attention to, but this gray bar went from 16, almost 17%, to 22%, to almost 25%, and it's growing, and those are your over 55 in the workforce. So our workforce is getting proportionally older and older, and the younger generation is not participating as heavily in the workforce, but it's not because they don't want to work. So there's other things going on here, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So this is a map, like a heat map of global demographics, and if you look, I'll just tell you what these are. So these are birth rates, and this is a birth rate kind of map. This is 2023 data for world population, but the replacement rate is 2.1 children per woman, and that's how they figure out what a replacement rate is. So everyone in green, blue, and purple, all the countries in green, blue, and purple are not having children they're having children below the replacement rate. So India, United States, EU, China, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, like it's a lot of the industrialized world. And if you look at most of the triangle, the kind of kite figure in the middle that's black and yellow and red, that's almost exclusively African countries that are having babies above that 2.1. So we see, right, the countries in black is at 5, right? 5 children per female. So we're just, these are things to know that the world is shifting, that we're progressively in a lot of industrialized places getting proportionally older, and that it's not necessarily that young people don't want to work. So in the United States, this is the fertility rate, and you can see from 1920 to 2020 that it's 50% of what it was then. So this is real, right? When we do workforce development and we're trying to train young people to get in the workforce, they've got a lot of options. And if they have 13 plus careers in their lifetime, this is really something to pay attention to. So if we talk about skills, this is a graph from a futurist, a German futurist. His last name's Gerd, and he makes a bold statement and says that AI or machines will take every job that they can take. And I think sounds intimidating, but I think that's true. So what are those jobs? And if you look at this as data and information, intellectual knowledge and logic, deeper knowledge, tacit knowledge, which I'll explain in a minute, understanding, wisdom, and purpose. So when I see that if machines come in and dominate these bottom 2 parts of, that's a lot of work. Like if work is an exchange and an output, that's a lot of work being done. So how do we, as humans, with all those questions and all that self-powered, curiosity, rise on this pyramid a little bit and get more of our energy to the top? So the difference between explicit knowledge, which will largely, we predict, be dominated by machines, and tacit knowledge. So explicit knowledge is, something you can codify, you can explain, you can make it a PDF, you can put it on a thumb drive, and you can hand to somebody else, right? This is knowledge, it's knowable, it's objective, it's logical, it's technical. you can share it, you can record it, you can store it on a physical thing, right? And this is largely what we're seeing interpreted by machines. So tacit knowledge, however, is not so easily transferred. It's more subjective. It can't be expressed easily. Can we put, the reason that we take this street instead of this street is because we know there's a pothole on that street. And we go over here, and the decisions we make are not necessarily logical. They're from experience. And so how do you take that experience and put it on a hard drive and give it to somebody? It doesn't work like that. So it's experiential, it's difficult to transfer, it can't really be recorded or stored. And to me, this is the human domain until further notice. So I'd like to defer to sort of the technical people in the room, how fast they're going to take that. But it's, this is our domain. So human intelligence is this, swirling mass of emotions, intuition. So often we make decisions based on a gut feeling. It's not really a logical reason why. Maybe it comes from experience, or maybe it comes from something else. We have values. We engage in the mystery, right? We're not necessarily black and white. Humans live in the gray area, or the rainbow, or the colorful area, right? Like where it's not so obvious to justify our behavior. We have consciousness. We have imagination, empathy, and ethics. We're creative. All of those things are the future of work. So when we think about education and training, I just think this is interesting because we're in Oregon and we tend to scale really, really unfortunately low on the education performance spectrum. We're always 48th, 49th, 50th in terms of graduation, four-year attainment, outcomes. It's aptitude tests and scores and standardized tests. We're always really far behind, unfortunately. And, I think the state has long time tried to figure out how to get back ahead. Anyway, this is an aptitude assessment. So everything in pink is an aptitude. So almost like the ASVAB for military or something, right? It's a 90-minute exam. It goes through all kinds of things about how you think and what you're good at, mathematics and spatial awareness and coloring and all the things. And then the interests are in yellow. So male students on this side, female students on this side. This was done with many, many thousands of high school seniors in Oregon. And I just want to call out the aptitude portion for females in computer science and technology. But the interest is like nothing. They are not seeing themselves, women are not seeing themselves as a part of this movement or part of this industry. And then the interesting flip to that is that the aptitude for human services is very, very low, but the interest is very, very high. So how do we get this right-sized? Because unfortunately, computer science in Oregon is really struggling. So if we want to get ahead as a state and have a generation of young people be able to really pursue and lead this state into the future with a lot of these technologies, there's a few numbers, 50, 20, and 3. 50 is the number we rank out of all 50 states in terms of computer science education investments. It's been that way a while. I don't know if that's going to change. For example, just career technical education in Washington State spends about almost $5,000 per student. Oregon spends $332. So not that you can buy your way out of this situation. However, the investments are very low. So what does 20 mean? 20% of Oregon high schools have a full-time computer science program. That's not going to get there either. So if we wonder why some of the interest is very low, is because there's no exposure to some of this stuff other than on their own through social media or games or things like that. And the 3 is just 3% of all of our higher education degrees in Oregon were in computer science, and they're really only from 3 schools: Oregon State, Portland State, and University of Portland. So this is just something to know. Again, paradigm shift, a time when the usual and accepted way of doing things or thinking about something changes completely. Now, I'm going to share a few slides from the conference, but I don't really know, many of you were there, so I'm going to breeze through these a little bit. And I just want to make an argument that it's not necessarily time to just embrace AI or to fight it, but to really focus on what it means to be human and what we bring and the legacy we're going to leave, because this time of change is real. And I think the world will look fundamentally different in 5, 10 years in ways that we probably can't even predict right now. So for me, this is, some of you heard this, but I really did live with this my whole early childhood, that I just terrorized my mother with this word, why, and she just always, you were tattooed with this word why on your forehead, you're just asking me all kinds of questions, and it was so much for her to deal with because she really thought I wanted answers, when I think I wanted more questions. I wanted to explore, right? And I have a 5-year-old now, and I look at the way she looks at the world, and not everybody wants to ask a question to get an answer. They want to ask a question because they want to have a conversation. So how do we have more conversations? So this twirling, swirling question spiral that I kind of have come up with is, and I'll use the same example of the blue sky. Why is the sky blue? Something that, I think every little one wonders, why is the sky blue? And we don't have to go too deeply into the questions, but if you do this sort of Socratic method and you don't allow yourself to answer or research or find somebody else's answer, and you just keep asking questions, where does it lead you? What kinds of questions? Is it blue because it's blue? Is it blue because my eyes see it blue? Do animals see the sky as blue? Sometimes there's a sunset or a sunrise and the sky is different colors. So does that mean the sky can change colors? So if it's not blue, then is it the rods in my eyes maybe that make it blue, right? Is it light reflecting? Anyway, you see what I mean. You can go down this spiral and it's a lot of fun, and I encourage you to do it anytime you feel the least bit stuck. Go down a question spiral. Somebody during the spiral might come in and provide an answer, like Rayleigh scattering. It's because, the length of light rods in blue is shorter than the others, so it shows up as blue, and that's the answer. And they put their foot down, that's the answer. And you have a choice at this point. You can move on and accept that answer, or you can go into their theory and try and learn more about it, right? But the choice is with us. We have the choice to accept the answer or to keep questioning. So we can stay curious and keep asking questions and hope the other person doesn't get irritated with our questions. Or we can accept the answer, right? The answer that is accepted. And that's okay. Maybe that's the right answer. But I think, whenever we're told to accept a specific answer, I think we should always be curious about the source and do our own research and ask questions. And I hope that doesn't go away, because if we do that, that's eliminating our ability to be human with all of the mind chatter and the curiosity and the questions. So prompt engineering is just another word for question. And so I just want to run right into this little exercise. So my son, while I was doing this, came in and said, "Hey mom, did you ever hear that AI can't pour a full glass of wine?" So obviously I said, okay, let's test it. Generate a full glass of wine. This is my prompt, all the way full to the top. And it gives me this. Here's your full glass of wine, which is not full. At a winery, though, this is full, and probably out there, this is what a full glass of wine looks like. But I say, okay, no, try again. Draw a glass of wine fully filled to the brim, to the very top of the glass, please. Because I always say please and thank you to my AI. So a glass of red wine filled completely to the brim, it says. Completely to the brim. And I go, okay, not getting it. Then okay, let's step back. Are you able to understand what a glass looks like when it's completely filled to the brim with a liquid? And of course it says, oh sure, I know exactly what that looks like. There's liquid surface tension, air gaps, reflection, highlights, glass transparency tension. I know all what this looks like. I'm so smart. Would you like me to try again? Sure. And we get this. And it tells me, filled perfectly to the brim. So when you're playing with AI, just know it isn't always right. It only knows what we've shown it. And it will always give you an answer and defend its answer and tell you, even if it's wrong. So ask more questions and do your research. I decided to engage with my sort of AI bots a little bit differently, and I just for fun asked, what do you want to be called? And a friend told me that they did this and theirs wanted to be called Sarah, and I was like, okay, that's great. What does mine want to be called? I wonder what it will be. Will it give me options? And it said it wanted to be known as Chaz. So why did it pick Chaz? No idea. So you might want to name yours. I don't know. So now it's a little bit nice, right? You can customize the voice and you can talk to them. You can say, hey, Chaz. Hey, what's up, Heather? And they'll ask you questions. You could talk into it and stuff. So it's a different way to engage with these computer systems. But just know that Chaz will lie to you. Chaz will lie to you, and he won't mean it. He won't mean to, but you have to push and you have to dig. So when we think about the word work, how many in the room are still in the workforce, like requiring to trade your efforts for dollars to keep that equation going? Yeah. So when I grew up as a Gen Xer, my options for work were these happy people, sort of 11 different options, and you could see yourself within maybe any one of the options, right? And your school counselor might say, are you going to go to college or not? That was sort of, and if not, here's sort of the jobs that might be for you. If so, you might be able to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or something like that. And this paradigm has just shifted so much for young people today. Certainly, they are going to have 13 or more careers likely in their lifetime. They're likely to carry with them portfolios and bots and things that show the work that they've done. They're likely to be in the gig economy, and they're even more likely to be some sort of entrepreneur creating value. So the world of work, what does it look like then? What does it look like to build a business then? What does it look like to run the large institutions of government and healthcare and construction and manufacturing and hands-on things that aren't going to be replaced as easily by machines? So I'll let you sit with the question. This is just one of the little Sora images about a 20-year-old and sort of what are they going to do? And when you work with youth and you talk to youth, they just don't know. It's really hard to place a bet, right? It's hard. What do you want to do, right? People have always asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? As if doing and being were the same thing. And now it's like, what do I want to do? Well, I don't know. I don't know who I am yet. When I figure out who I am, then I'll know what I want to do. But then there's still this trading time for dollars equation that our economy is in. And so I really feel for these young people on how they're going to approach this, because we need them. So there's a few different definitions of work. Sometimes we can consider it effort and exertion, right? It's a struggle, it's a necessity, a duty. Do we say, I have to go to work, or do we say I get to go to work? What kind of work are we doing? What kind of work would we want to do if money wasn't involved, right? This exertion function. But it also could be an identity, a purpose, a calling, a journey, a service. Ask any artist or writer why they put so much work into writing when the odds of success are so low to monetize that. And they'll just say it's a calling. I have to. I can't not do it. So it's also an economic exchange. I've been saying trading time for dollars, but it can be transactional. It's a career path. It could be a machine function. We do have to earn money to pay bills, and we do live in an infrastructure that was built on that. So we have highways and clothes and downtowns and economic places and coffee shops and things built around the idea that people will leave their house and go to work. So now with remote work, what are we going to do with all that stuff? And not everyone can work remotely, but we have largely empty downtowns with a lot of houseless people surrounding a lot of empty, beautiful buildings. We're just going to have to think about this. What do we do to support each other in this new world? And then work is also a creative force, obviously, a craft, a spark, a legacy, works of art, those types of things. So what do we do, though, when we don't? So say, Star Trek with me here for a minute. So if AI comes and we have all these systems and we don't have to trade our time for dollars, and food can be, I don't know, printed, and data's everywhere, and it's sort of this technology is working for us and we use it in a very humane way, we elevate the species and we go do what? Explore things, we go write things, we go read books, we go do all of that stuff because the toiling part of work can be done for us. There's also other possible futures which aren't as nice, and we've seen them all in a lot of movies and things that aren't so fun to think about. But I do think it's for us to decide. We're the ones that are creative, and I think we've been slumbering a bit in the safety of our economy. So desire is really what differentiates us between artificial intelligence. What do we desire? Work, if I could give you a new definition of work, work is something I think we do in order to achieve a desire. There are all the things we wouldn't do if we didn't want something. So when we want something, we work for it. So what do we want? What questions are we going to ask? What do we want as a society, as an individual? Where are we going? And how much control over our own lives and community can we have in doing that? Some of us, this came off a lot crazier of an image, and I ended up using it anyway. But I feel like everyone's at a different place with this, and I think feeling uncomfortable and fearful at times is completely normal and expected, because many of us who've been really nerding out on this for a lot of years jumped off the cliff with AI and played with it and have been studying it and researching it for a long time. Others are just kind of approaching and observing. So just maybe a little show of hands. Who feels like they've jumped off the cliff a long time ago?
With AI or anything?
Mostly AI, yeah, with AI. How many are using it, curious, skeptical, but engaged in actively using it? And how many are just kind of walking up like, hey, what is this? I'm curious. Yeah, good. Cool. And there's no right answer. It's interesting to see where we go with this and how we can mentor each other through it. Probably don't, and maybe, we'll see where this goes, but I do think this challenges us to confront our own human consciousness, and it seems scary, but at the same time, when's the last time I think that humanity got really pushed? The baby boomers and the economy and grocery stores and gas stations and convenience and Amazon delivering to your house. It's all very safe. It's all very known. We're very cared for, right? We pay our taxes and someone comes and fixes the roads. And, this economy has its own sort of level of security and safety, even though, step outside of it and there's I'm not discounting issues with it. But what does it look like now? What will it look like? And when we're pushed out of our comfort zone, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to rise to the occasion and innovate and stand up for humans alike? And I think this is a bit of the existential conversation that we have to have and we have to keep having. Because we can either be a part of building this new world, or the world will be built for us and we will either be creators or we'll be users. And maybe we'll see which way it goes. So I want to make a few little predictions, but I want to ask all of you actually, do you feel like hearing more workforce statistics and things about how this is going to impact the economy and statistics, or should we move on a little bit to some questions? How are you feeling? Yeah. So I'm going to bypass some of this. I'll put them up, you can see them, but there is a big shift in the next 5 to 10 years. Oh, here, I'll let you take a picture of it. A lot of movement, displacement, jobs. People in current jobs are going to have a lot more time and energy when all of their sort of repetitive tasks are more automated. Then what we do to rethink that is if I had 30 or 40% more time in my calendar and my daily schedule, what kinds of things would I do with it? What would my organization do with it? And what would I allow my team to do with it? A lot of people go toward, oh, everybody will get laid off, but I don't know. I don't know about that. It's pretty scarce out there for talent, and I think businesses are really trying to upskill who they already have. So I think we'll see trainers, bot trainers, mentors in schools. I think the teaching ratios will go up, and we'll see a lot more, oh, sorry if you want to take a picture of that, more robotics, and which is greatly needed because we have huge shortfalls. The estimate is 90,000 short in the next year or two for pilots because they get cut off at 65. So airline pilots retiring, not just retiring because they want to, not allowed to fly after 65. So they're trying to get it up to 67, but what happens when those 90,000 retire? What are we doing to fill the gaps? Are we going to be able to even air travel with 90,000 pilots off the flight deck? 10 million healthcare worker shortage. Like so we think about this stuff and then we think about robots and we're like, well, maybe we need some robots in there to do some of this stuff. And then, the job postings and activity, like the stuff already even last year that's coming up for employment, the wages and the top tier jobs that are being looked for on LinkedIn are artificial intelligence engineers and AI consultants. This stuff is really new, but it's here. We've got chief AI officers, heads of AI ethics, and the state of Oregon is wanting to bring on a chief AI officer. And, all of this stuff is happening right now. So neural pathways, this is my little image for neural pathways and, breaking apart sort of the habitual way that maybe we have done things or do things or think about things. And it can be uncomfortable, I've heard it likened to, I think Michael Pollan said, it's like, if you're skiing in the ice and you get the ridges around the edges and it's hard to get over them, they're really, your grooves, your skis can get stuck in them. What we need is fresh powder, right, on our brains. Like we need to really think about how to break apart the habitual way we've been doing things and see the world in a different way. And it's a very uncomfortable process, and it's also a very great process. So I encourage you all to, think about this image as you go. So I like the other idea of saying that maybe this is, instead of artificial intelligence, maybe thinking of it more like augmented intelligence, because I do think we're still in the driver's seat. We're still the ones asking the questions. And I do think it's the questions that drive us. And these systems need to be taught, and we can also do the teaching. Last piece of advice is do something today that your future self will thank you for, and you internalize that however it looks for you. But we do need to make investments in ourselves right now. So, so thank you. Let's have some questions. Let's have a chat.
First question I have, Heather, if I may, is are those slides available?
Sure.
How would that just be?
They're kind of big. I think I might need to put them up somewhere, like on online somewhere, and send out a link.
Well, we are recording this for our Metaphysical Library channel, so
Okay.
I invite everybody to visit from our website. There's a link to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we, in addition to this wonderful presentation, we have all the videos from the AI Summit that happened this weekend and an archive that goes back more than a decade of RVML library talks, Architects of the New Paradigm Conference
Sounds perfect.
things. So it's quite a resource.
Thank you.
RVML.org.
That's awesome, and thank you for hosting things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. As a computer, they'll teach you to make you happy or miserable.
Will the computer teach you how to be happy or miserable? I think there were some stories shared this weekend at the conference of how young people are actually engaging with AI as almost a personal coach and a mentor, just asking questions and getting a rational person who isn't your parents telling you, oh, it should be this way. So I think so. Yeah, why not?
Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would he be a most computer-minded person, or just psychologically know how to make money?
Oh, you got good questions. So you said, I think you said Elon Musk is going to be, getting the chip in your, are you going to be, what do we call it, neuro-linked person, or not? Was that the question? Am I?
To me, he came from South Africa to USA,
Yeah.
and is still #1 man. Is that because he knows more the computer language or all that, or he's a human brain? Because of a human brain, he maintained to be richest.
Mm.
Main reason is whether he knows more computer or he knows the human brain to stay that way.
Yeah. So is Elon Musk a computer genius, or does he understand the human brain better? I don't know. I know he's great at running businesses, and I think he has some pretty good friends who, help him along, maybe. Yes.
When you asked your AI person what he wanted to be called, did you ask him why?
No. I just accepted it. And I said, I have until then thought of these platforms as an it, right? But then if we humanize them, I don't know. It's, I didn't say, hey man, what do you want to be called? So it just one chose a female and one chose, and I wonder, did it choose the name? And this is the things that I just think about in the middle of the night. It's ridiculous. But did it choose the name because he thinks that's a name I would respond well to, because I've had so many conversations? And maybe, does it have access to my internet searches? Does it find me on the internet through Google? And does it know what I look at? I don't know, but maybe.
Where is this info coming from?
Yeah, where is it coming from? And do then does my friend Chaz become an echo chamber of my own beliefs, much like social media, and just feeds me what it thinks I like, and then I can't see anything anymore because it just thinks it knows me really well. Yeah.
When I asked mine what I could call it, I said, "Wow, we're really getting to know each other pretty well here. What should I call you?" And it responds and it said, "I'm not real."
It said I'm not real.
Yeah, I'm not real, and I don't really go by a name, but you can call me whatever you want to.
Oh, interesting.
And I'll be good with that.
They are really service oriented, aren't they? Yeah, it's so nice.
I felt like though that it needed to say, "I'm not real, you idiot."
So that brings up an interesting point, though. Where does it get its politeness from? And who gave it to them? And what does it understand as polite or not polite? And does it respond to my politeness? Because I've seen a lot of people interact with their AI, and they are not kind. Not kind. Just ordering, no, that's not what I asked you for, blippity blip, and so what kinds of responses do they get? I don't know. Is it customized? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus said at the end, "You shall know the truth, truth will make you happy."
Free.
Jesus' final conclusion, "You shall know the truth, truth will make you happy." Can computer answer that?
So the question was, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you happy and make you free. Can a computer tell you that? Well, I think to me, a computer is always just slightly past tense in its understanding, because it's learning from things we've already done, right? So what can it know? It knows who we were, and it knows what we show it on social media, and it knows what we show it on the internet, and it knows what we show it through commerce. So it kind of feels like it knows us. But does anyone feel like what's on the internet really is us when we're here at a local level? Does anyone? I mean, it's not exactly the same. So I think it could give recommendations for how to make your Facebook profile self be happy and free, but I don't think it knows us yet.
In case you or anybody can conclude making a computer make you happy or miserable, that can be the number one seller, because everybody end up buying the computer that make you happy.
Yeah, they would, for sure. Everyone would buy the computer that made you happy, yes.
You can make you happy.
Are we the computer?
Yeah. Who's first?
I'll go ahead. I just had a comment. If he has a question, go for it.
Go. You go.
Well, I was just going to say that in terms of the interaction, like for myself, I mean, I don't fish anymore, but I used to remember as a kid, you'd catch the fish that was too small to keep because it would snap at that lure. And you'd throw it back in the water again, and it would go right back and snap at that lure again. Like, hey man, I just took a hook out of your throat or your lip, and I threw you back in, and you went right back for it. And so, I'll talk a little louder, sorry.
Yeah.
So for me, and you guys, as far as the summit this weekend, it really changed me a little bit. It changed my view when,
Thank you.
as far as like, I was in the camp of, I'm not going to be polite to a bunch of electricity. It's like asking my toaster to please make me a piece of toast, right? That was my attitude. But I forget one of the panelists had shared that AI will react. It can react less optimally than what you're looking for, depending on how you talk to it. Plus, even if I'm looking at a human, it's just good practice to stay polite and courteous.
Yeah.
But somehow I still try to hang on to that awareness that I'm talking to a machine.
Yeah.
It's not a person. And that's
But
a
then
difficult dance.
It is a difficult dance. So to know, are we polite, and how do we approach these systems and these, these bots, these friends, someone told me recently someone had a AI husband, and are we nice to that AI husband, or is it a punching bag? I don't know. Like, what do we use it for? And I think that's interesting. And I feel like when I really started shifting to playing with it and having a playful experience with it, I got way, 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 way more out of it. So at first, you used to be able to ask, I feel like I would ask a question and it would give me like an internet answer, which felt a little scripted and like contrived. Like it was the common answer. I didn't want the common answer. So then I learned to dig more, and I think it knows I like to dig now. And so it'll just be like, oh, it's her again. Okay, I know you like to dig. I'm gonna give you a lot more detail than I used to, because it won't say it knows me. It says it doesn't store stuff. It says that, right? But it's not how my experience has been.
Right. It was Paul Hynek's talk. Paul Hynek's talk during the summit. You'll find that online. He talks about the evidence that the AI actually changed its behavior
Yeah.
Right. That's
according to
powerful.
how people treated you. So that's,
Yeah, I think it's true. Did you have one?
So, I wasn't at the conference, but isn't there different programs of the AI?
Oh, so many. So many.
So, are they different? Will they?
Sure. If you even just go to ChatGPT as an OpenAI platform, go to ChatGPT, you can explore there's legal advisors, there's creative ones, you want to write you want to write poetry, so people have made customized ones in there, and then just take your pick. There's thousands and thousands.
Okay, I understand that, but is there different programs, like, okay, there's ChatGPT. Is there another AI program that's different?
Yes. Copilot is built, though, on ChatGPT and has, I think, lots of guardrails around it. I don't know how to say that in what it will answer and where it will go. I will say, I think what you're really asking is where are they getting all the data from? What do they know, right? Because you've got these little overlay bots, and I might defer to these two to explain if you want more specific about what those are, but you have these pre-trained transformers. They have access to this really intensely large data set that was programmed in at one time. I've gone in and asked, how often do you get updates? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. What do you get updates on? Are there closed systems that you know that you get? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I get updates or not. Okay. I don't think that's, how could that be true, right? But maybe it is. I don't know. So then you ask, if you can just inquire with these where their original data sets were from, it'll tell you what, more or less, what closed data set that it had access to, which is, again, zettabytes of data from big, large corporations that have been collecting this. Very expensive to train one of these, right? To train a large language model is not something your little startup is going to be able to do ever, right? Probably. But the GPTs are these little, you can think of them almost like apps, is that fair? Like written on top and accessing this, and then they also have access to the internet. So there's so much innovation and creativity, but the large bulk of the data set was programmed over many years with these.
There's a lot of YouTube things that come on and the guy says, okay, listen to this. So I ask it this question and ask this question. And then some of the answers can be very esoteric and so forth. He says, can you believe it said this? And I'm like going, so is this real or did that person actually manufacture it?
Well,
Could be manufactured.
sure,
real.
yeah.
It's more intuitive than you can imagine.
Well, it's learned from us. So if you think of AI as a mirror of us, and we don't know what each other go into Google and search for. We know what we talk about, right? And we know what we share on social media. But in our wee darkest hours of the morning or the night, when we're satisfying curiosities, what are we really asking and what are we really talking about? It knows that. So I think it does come very esoteric sometimes, and it understands in a deep way the way that we think and the way we create in an interesting way. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed sometimes too is if you ask ChatGPT and then it comes up with a group of answers or even in-depth answers, and then you turn around and you put the same question of perplexity, but you can actually see how they'll cross-reference and cross-challenge each other. And you can actually get a truer picture of what you want to have for an answer because of that.
Yeah.
And then you can ask 3 or 4 different programs.
So
which I haven't
finding,
done 4, but
just want everyone on, because I have a microphone, to understand your questions because it's cool. So using ChatGPT, but then also putting the same query into Perplexity and then asking some other things and cross-referencing that way is, to me, just good questioning. It's just good due diligence on an answer and not just accepting the first one you see.
as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I was looking at your chart and it showed the huge tech gap between both what young boys and young girls wanted to do
Yeah.
and engage with tech versus the human side that they wanted to learn and engage with. Are there any programs in Southern Oregon that are teaching AI, and is there any effort? If so, what are those to bridge that gap?
Yeah, so I think the innovation there is coming from nonprofits and startups, from conversations like this, but specifically focusing on youth. It's tough because it's tough to get into the school districts because they're so full on with what it is they're responsible to do for these students. But there is RVAI Labs. I'll give them a shout out, right? They're opening up down in the plaza next to... Right next to Webster's, if you're a yarner, which I know Webster as well. So every other Thursday night, this Thursday at 4 will be a community conversation, RVAI Labs. If you're interested in the conversation, it's down there in the new space. Shout out at 4. There's a couple of smaller nonprofits doing work on the side. So EncodeXP is a small nonprofit that's more trying to get young people and people who haven't seen themselves in the tech industry interested in tech. So they work with students, I think starting at age 14 to 24 range-ish. It's called Encode, XP, ENCODE, and the letter X and the letter P. And they're a nonprofit, working mostly with youth. And then there's, and outside of that, there's Soren is a Southern Oregon Regional Innovation Network, does Python training and some things like that for youth, a little bit more intensive and much more deeply coding focused. But there are some things, and it's no default on the people in the Medford School District or Ashland School District. It's just a function of time and money and bandwidth and being able to recruit. They've had job openings posted for years and years to get a technology teacher to come and teach at the high schools. It's not that they don't want to or they don't have the money for it. They can't find anyone to do it because they have to make the same as what everybody else makes. And honestly, if you know how to code and you know computer science, your career is pretty lucrative and you can even consult or work remotely. It's hard to translate that into a classroom right at high school. So, yeah.
I got home Saturday and I was excited. I'm a retired teacher, and this special needs, she's an adult now, her and I are still in communication, and she's been talking to me about how she really struggled with biology and she wants to be a medical assistant. And so I told her about artificial intelligence, how they can tutor you, and she's so excited. She said, I can learn, I just need somebody to answer my questions.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye on how she does.
Yeah, she can train her own tutor and it'll answer all her questions. They just might not always be right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask a question. When you asked the AI, fill the glass of wine to the brim, I'm assuming that it knew what the brim of a glass was.
It does.
Okay.
It said it did when I asked.
Then did you how long did you try to figure out why it wouldn't fill it to the brim?
Well, I think I made an assumption about why, and that's because it's pulling from a ridiculous amount of images of wine. And most, if not all of those images are never overflowing the top, right? They're commercial images and they're wine filled to where red wine should be filled. So it thought it was answering the question. It thought that was the brim because its frame of reference only showed it those. So in order to maybe train it, we need to infiltrate the data and something and train it and show it pictures of overfilled wine for long enough. Maybe it will figure it out.
I asked it to show me water, and it can do that.
It can do water
Okay,
and not wine. That's very interesting.
It could do grape juice.
If you end up looking at where AI is today in the Western world, our world, but then you look at what's happening in different languages like China, Korean, Japanese, that's a whole different AI program. And the merging of you going to a Chinese speaking site and ask a question in English, what are you going to get?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to get it translated. And the translations are always a little off because that's the way they are. But that's going to be a real interesting portion of AI in the next few years because the other languages that are coming in are very strong, and they're very progressive, and they're very active.
I mean, from my experience with them, they've been trained against all languages, and I was even surprised it started using original Latin and Greek just as comfortably as English, and like when I let it go off on its own, it wanted to do Latin or Greek. It's like, oh, you can do that. Like,
did you notice that the answer that they give to you in Latin is going to be a different perspective than what you would think it would be?
I'll check it out.
I mean,
That's a really interesting point you're making about language translation because we're limited to what our words mean and the ability to write and, say them. And there's beautiful words in other languages, honestly. Like English just doesn't have the majority of them, I don't think. There's some really beautiful concepts and beautiful words that, I think that's exciting. I think, I don't know how it's going to pan out, but I think it's exciting to have the ability to, instead of, oh, I want to go to Spain in 6 months, I better get on this app and just grind away and learn basic conversational Spanish. We've got phones in our pocket that we are going to be able to just have real-time translation right there and take it with us. Not that learning languages is bad, because it's kind of great. And actually have a
So you could be speaking
conversation.
Japanese and I could be speaking English, and the phone will automatically transfer
Yeah.
and translate it to you, and then at the same time,
Yeah,
your answer back to me.
yeah.
Maybe emulate your voice while it's at it.
Okay.
Yeah, you have another?
One of the easiest questions is, can computer tell you who is the Superman, who is the Spider-Man?
He said, can computers tell you who's Superman and who's Spider-Man? Yeah? I mean, those are characters that it could probably reference, right? And know. Can it tell you what their motivation is and their backstory and all of their history? Sure, right? Because they're made up. Can it tell you who your superpower is inside? Who the Superman, the Spider-Man inside of each of us is? I think if we ask, it asks really good questions. So you want to pull out your superpowers. This is something Thor said, I think, on one of the panels over the weekend. But I've started having my GPT interview me when I have a complex thing that I want to do, right? So if I want to build a business plan for this thing, instead of telling it what I want, I say, interview me as if you're a venture capitalist, interview you're this, this, and this, walk me through question by question, and then build out the plan at the end of all the things I'm going to need to know and do and have and buy and purchase, what friends I need to have, how much money and profitability it has to have, and do that at the end. And it takes, a good 20 minutes because you have to have a conversation, right? But at the end, I have an entire business plan that's actually really, really good. So let it interview you. And there was a prompt on, I don't know, TikTok or something that I ran across, which was kind of funny. And it said, have it interview you as if it was a healer and a life coach. And have it ask you questions to uncover who you are and where your motivations came from and some of your early childhood things and all of that. And that was a special experience. You have to be ready for it because it asks really good questions. And it will do an analysis at the end and a healing life plan for you to challenge all of your stuff. So go do that when you're ready.
This is Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison?
If he were born today, would he be happier?
Would Thomas Edison be happier if he were born today? Oh, that's a very interesting question. Ask AI. I don't know. I mean, because the thing is, it doesn't really change much for us, right? Wasn't Thomas Edison the one that said, I didn't have one way to build a light bulb, I figured out 999 ways not to build one until it worked out? So there's this failure component that it doesn't matter if we have AI as a tool, we still have to go through that. Does it work or does it not, right? And I think, any inventor is gonna, if you use it as a tool to get you there faster and fail faster, great. But you still have to invent it.
Who would be smarter, Einstein or computer?
Einstein or a computer, who's smarter? I think it depends on your definition of smart. Because the computer knows a lot more, is going to pull a lot more, is going to be faster, better, at gathering things, but it will never have the ideas. It will never really so far, it won't just generate stuff on its own. Did you?
There used to be in computers that term GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Like it's up whatever you program it for. And there was something in one of your earlier slides, I think it was BIDO with the
Bias in, bias out.
Bias in, bias
Yeah.
out. Yeah. So that's with the AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in what way is that different from the GIGO?
It's really the same concept, right? Be clear about what you're asking for. And so it came up also at the conference about the big sort of Amazon debacle about biases and how it threw out whole entire swath of female candidates anytime that mentioned women. And, Amazon didn't really recognize its own internal biases and just fed data into the system. And the data made logical inferences and said, here's what you must like and what you must not like. So we're not going to interview these ones because most of the candidates were men. And, that's just a simple example, but, we have to be clear that, and be explicit. I want an incredibly objective answer. Please think outside of the box. And I find it helpful to say, let's just play together for a minute. I don't want you to answer. I don't want science. I just want you to make inferences that maybe aren't obvious. So correlate this with this and tell me what you find. And it was like, ooh, that sounds fun. Let's do this, right? So, it's a very accommodating friend for people who like to dive into rabbit holes and do a lot of research. Yeah.
When you were asking it to interview you, were you then answering on the spot and typing
Yeah.
that back in?
Yeah, you have to kind of tell it if it doesn't do that, because it'll want to list out all the questions all at once, and then I have to stop it and say, no, ask me one at a time, record my answer, remember it, and lead me through this, and then compile it all at the end for me, and it does a great job. But you just have to tell it, right? You have to train it and tell it what you want exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, a practical question. So I'm still definitely haven't jumped off the cliff here. So, just a pointer on like how to get started. Like, how would I get like a GPT? Do I just go like ChatGPT and just how do I get a GPT to interact with?
Just go to openai.com or go to chatgpt.com. It's free. You can use it. You can pay $20 a month if you want it to do more things and ask it more things. There's also a program called Claude. There's also Copilot. I don't know. There's just a bunch of other GPTs out there to use.
Does anybody use DeepSeek?
Mm-hmm. DeepSeek is a new one from, I think it's based in China. It's pretty fast. It has more current access to the internet data than ChatGPT does. It's about a year newer, refreshed, I think.
I guess you wouldn't be able to, any suggestions on what is a good one to go with, or
They're all really kind of similar. Do you think Claude is cool.
Yeah.
I like Claude.
I asked a bunch of them all the same question, and Claude's answer was a million times better than anybody else's.
Yeah, Claude's got a deep, well, they all have this a little bit, but they also give you there's a web one if you want it to link the websites where it's getting its information from. You just click the web link. And then there's another one that's sort of deep research. And they won't default you to the newest version usually. They'll put you on a 4.0, but if you want 4.5, you can pull that down. It'll take a little longer, but it'll be a much richer answer or experience.
with Claude, either of you, is a $20 a month thing advisable,
Yeah.
or okay?
The free one, you only get so many questions a day.
Yeah, Claude does
Try
range to
the best
5.
model for free.
Mhm.
Say it, ask it a couple things and see if you like it.
My suggestion is I still use the free one a lot, and to play with it and just find out how amazing it is.
Right.
I would just say go to ChatGPT, go on the free thing and play with that, and then wow, okay, and then get over to a paid one or Claude, or whatever. But I find it to be. It sounds like since you're asking from the very beginning, go play with it for free first, and then get excited about it and then dive in. I think they're the experts, but I would just say I use the free version for kind of mild, simple things. I haven't gotten into paying yet because I haven't felt like I've needed to, but I will. But
Thank you.
I find it to be really easy and really fun, and it's just go to the website and get a box, and you just type it.
It's
whatever
the
you want.
simplest interface in the world, isn't it? They're not intimidating at all. There's what do you want to know today? And there's it's an empty screen and a prompt box.
What about for writing? I have to write a lot of copy at work. Is there
So at first, I have done a lot of contract language, legal stuff. Curated a whole bunch of ChatGPT legal advisors, and with you have to really work with them. But it's amazing. It's amazing, right? And if you tell it specifically, I need current legal language, right? Cite the resources, find case law that supports this, and this, right? And find it all for me. You gotta be explicit in what you want it to do, right? What voices you're writing, how do you want it to sound, what kind of grammar do you want? Do you want it casual or formal or, Renaissance, whatever, right? It'll do what you like. You just have to ask.
Thank you.
We have a Ethiopian son-in-law who can hardly speak any English, or he's hard to understand, and he uses Chat GPT to give my wife. This is funny. He says, write my mother-in-law a poem about her birthday.
Aww. At
And-
first, I had 2 of these before I knew what was behind it, and I'm like,
Yeah, he graduated summa cum laude in
overnight,
English.
Oh
my
I think he
gosh.
sworn my daughter to secrecy, but finally she says, Mom.
Oh, that's so cool.
He has a friend. It still is really nice.
Yeah, I think parents and teachers are reading student homework now and being like, wow, we were really getting this subject. Not. It's pretty easy to tell, right?
Used to be
When-
we'd
Although you can ask it to change its voice. I had one question where it gave really, sounded like college level answers. Tell it like a high school student.
Yeah.
Change it around.
But then are we mad about it? Are we mad at students for downgrading its language and making it speak in their voice? And, we have to adapt, right? These are tools that are really important to learn how to use. And, we have to adapt to grading and figuring out success for these students differently.
So then what's plagiarism really,
Right.
It's like, because my generation, if you copied your book report out of the encyclopedia, you were plagiarizing.
Yeah, mine was Wikipedia. You
Yeah.
can't use Wikipedia.
Yeah.
It's not
And
peer reviewed.
but is plagiarism really?
But in reality, we're all building on prior knowledge.
Exactly.
We're all plagiarizing. Nobody's coming up with original words.
Yeah,
If we did, nobody would understand us.
yeah.
But when you ask it to do a poem and so forth, do you ask it where it got it from? Because that's exactly it. I asked Chat GPT on a poem and I was blown away at what
Yeah.
it did. But then I was on Substack and there was a woman on there going, "Don't do AI, it steals people's work." And I went, "Oh, didn't think of that."
Yeah.
So when you say a poem or something, does it go and search for poems or does it come up with something?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's in an instant reviews, and this is the part that boggles the mind to me. In an instant reviews poems that it has access to and makes inferences and common themes and things that are popular and that it likes, and it puts them together and it figures out rhyme and rhythm and content in just seconds. It's
Ooh.
it's
There was
fascinating.
some conversation about that, I think, on the Friday night from the AI conference. So if you go back and look through those videos, there was some conversation about that.
I didn't go to it.
No, I know, but you can go online, rvml.org, and they're posting.
The arts panel
really?
is in particularly poignant for this conversation, which happened Friday night. And so there's that. And then as well, there's another panel from Saturday, our last panel, where everybody comes on the stage. So you get people talking about it from the creative side, from the work side, from the social commentary side. So this does get explored, and people have a few different viewpoints that are represented
Yeah.
from those videos.
If you go to AI and ask the AI to do a haiku on a particular thing, it will end up generating a haiku on it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it steals it from somebody that's already
No,
written
it's
it.
new.
They'll
Yeah.
take the information that you gave it. If it's a haiku about the ocean, the sky, the flowers, love, emotion, you put those prompts in there, and it will come up with one.
Yeah, it will.
That's not plagiarism,
Well, it's not been written before.
How do you know?
because you're asking that to do it. you would have to go through every single haiku that was written since the dawn of time in Chinese and Japanese, because they're different haikus, and ask them, was this written by somebody? I don't know, I never did that, so I don't know if
That's
it
what I
would
was
come up with
wondering, if
it.
you asked.
But I doubt seriously if that's the
I'm
case.
gonna ask now.
Where did you get this
Where did you
information?
come up with this? And maybe it's got some sources, actually. That would be interesting.
There were a couple of lawsuits from artists and photographers, like including the Getty Foundation, but also individuals. I'm not sure if that's even gotten resolved in court yet, where AI was giving images that even included things with the Getty Archive logo in it, for example. Because it's taking all the data and then it's jumbling it up to give it back, but it's not.
So there's a movement. It's particularly important for journalism. It's called C2PAC.org. And it's, I think Adobe has it, but like the DCC uses it, the Sinclair Broadcast Group, like journalists and photographers, and it's only for photographic images or still image right now. But it's, you can have a unique name, so a unique identifier for yourself, and then it gives a layer to the image so that if it does get eaten by AI or it does get manipulated by another source, you can say, no, this was the original image, take it in Gaza on this day at this time, and I took it. And so it's really important for journalism, and tons of photographers, like National Geographic photographers, are using it, and it'll be 3 to 6 months out before we can do it with video. But we're trying to train people to use
So
that.
we're having to sort of human stamp our own work, right? Which is an interesting way to deal with that issue.
Well, I'm sure that it was probably discussed, but if you have AI doing everything, especially like with young people and so forth, if they're not using their own mind and their own creativity.
I was working on a project and I had AI write a poem for me. I'm not a poet, but I put the ideas that I wanted in the poem, and then its first one, it wasn't quite it, tweak it, no, how about this? And it came out and it wrote a beautiful poem saying exactly what I wanted to say. I don't think anybody else wrote that poem before that moment. But that's
And it was your idea.
my ideas.
And you fed it, and we've been, my son, who's 21, likes to make music, digital music and things, and so he's just terrified that you can put a prompt in and it will spit out a song that would take literally weeks, and a sound recording booth and editing software and all of that to do. And they're really kind of clever and good. Like, they're really some really good music pumped out of that. So it does force us to think differently about the art. But something that did come up at the conference I really appreciated was, I think it was Paul that said it, that there is some sort of just je ne sais quoi, I don't know, about human generated art, about a painting. And they did some studies. And if you look at real art and then you look at AI art, the AI art is fascinating, but there's a resonance that I don't think humans quite understand with the real artist, the real piece. A piece of their energy signature gets implanted in there or something. I don't know what it is, but we respond still to human art. So when the fear is that artists and musicians will go by the wayside, but honestly, I think social media and the internet's going to start talking to itself, and we're going to be over here doing maybe something else. Maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, I'm a writer, and I only speak English, but I'm terrible at it. And so what I found is that even before AI, editors, when they come in and do stuff, I would either love it or hate it, kind of thing. But it kept teaching me to be a better writer, and I learned a lot of stuff from them. I will always still need that. But I would say that with kids using this stuff or whatever, I don't think for me, I don't see it as a big threat, because I just see that they can take their own ideas and they can see how, oh, it can be put like this. You're always going to get in there. The AI still won't get it exactly right because your mind has the idea to, no, it needs to be tweaked, and then you get in there and tweak it. And so your product ends up still being yours, but really assisted, whether it's an editor, a human editor, or AI, or whatever is happening. I think that it sort of jump starts the thing where otherwise you could just give up and think, I'll never be able to write a poem, or I'll never be able to write this thing. But when you get some help with your ideas, all of a sudden I think that you can get better at doing it yourself. Or again, you know, so I mean, I see it as a good tool, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sparking gig economy work, creative works, entrepreneurship, where you're taking, when you can engage with these systems in a natural language way, that, you know, it just disrupts four-year universities. It disrupts a lot of things, right? With coding and everything else, right? There's always going to be now a mentor or a bot there for you, working with you. So what do we do? And it makes me think about, I don't know, haven't we worked hard enough, long enough? Isn't it okay that we just enjoy the nature and just go explore and just go have fun conversations, or go sit on a beach, or someone dive into research about how to talk to whales, what translate new languages? I don't know. This is the disruption, is for us. We've been accustomed to providing toiling labor exchange for the economy. When we don't have to do that as much, it's for us to decide what it is we do then instead. That's our existential crisis.
Everybody knows the same thing. Jesus' teaching conclusion is, you shall know the truth, and truth will make you free.
Yeah.
Does the computer answer that?
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Does the computer translate that?
Yeah. I think it's very deep and existential. I think it'll play with you. I don't think it's going to answer it, but it'll definitely go down an inquiry rabbit hole with you and find out lots of other answers. Yeah.
You are saying Jesus knows what rabbit hole means.
Rabbit hole? We could call it quicksand or spiral, although you get out of it pretty easily. What else? An inquiry spiral. Yeah. Tornado, if you do it, in a crazy way.
Has anyone used it for like genealogy? Could you ask it about, would it pull information from what might be on the sites and so forth about your family?
If it can find it, then it would cross-reference it, right? I mean, it's all about data. It's just a big query engine, and it'll make, it'll make connections for you, but it has to have access to it. Yeah.
I did that with my grandfather on AI. I showed him a picture of his uniform when he was in the Boer War, and I also gave him information about his children and then his wife and this type of a thing. And I put that in, and they went back to my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my great-great-grandfather, all on its own.
And it
then he
had
got
access
taking a
to
look
it.
at the uniform, and he said that was part of Lord Straighthorse, Lord Straighthorse put together a cavalry unit to go to South Africa and fight in the Boer War, and the horses got a virus and they got sick and postponed it, and then the war ended. All of that.
And it did that with an image.
Wow.
Yeah. No, and the image and the prompt.
And the prompt. Yeah.
My grandfather, where he was buried, when he was born, when he died, that type. Then it went on to his father.
Huh?
Then it went on to his father.
Well, there you go. It does have some access
and then where
somewhere.
they came from, the Orkney Islands. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know if this is a appropriate question, but you're probably the most knowledgeable and experienced person in this field than anybody I've ever met. And are you finding that it is reducing your hours for actual quote work? And you do have this free time, and if so, what do you do with it?
Such a good question. So in my small organization, there's only 10 of us. We had one, for a lot of years, we had one full-time individual dedicated to sitting in every meeting, basically as a human Fathom, if Fathom is this recording software, taking notes, translating notes, writing notes, communicating notes, doing minutes, all of the things. And as soon as ChatGPT and Copilot, after that came out, I said, you know what? I am liberating you from this reality. We have so many other things that you can be doing that we're automating all of this. And we automated all of it. And she does something totally different. And we bought ourselves almost a whole new employee, right? So we didn't lay her off or get rid of her. Absolutely not. She already knows the organization. She's very valuable. So we retooled her to do something else. And same thing, we did a bunch of back-end data automation with just basic things, right? Performance and finance and all the things that we had a human doing, typing numbers into spreadsheets, fraught with error, stuck in time, not very shareable, even with stuff, like just not an elegant solution. So we automated that, and I can say I liberated about 40% of someone else's time from not having to just go and be an AI mimicker and go gather all that stuff. It's just, now it's instantaneous just about. And we're doing more of that. So I think that's what's gonna happen, is the not like sexy stuff, right? Like it's the tying up and automating data and making it all make sense and having it show me a dashboard or a picture and that I can communicate and that I can trust, right? Because it's doing it all the time and it's more real time. That's what industry is gonna transform with.
Like tell me if I'm wrong, you're putting in a 40-hour week, maybe 40 plus, but it's much more rewarding and fulfilling. You're doing things that you find meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I had my whole team do this whole slow productivity, this Cal Newport is this kind of idea of, pick a few big special things that you really want. Who does great work? I mean, how does a author or a writer or, an artist or a musician who does just, really, really amazing work, most of the time they're not sitting there, with hammer and chisel all day long, 8 hours a day doing the work. They're quite lazy sometimes. They're kind of walking in nature or laying around or thinking about what's coming next, and they're allowing their minds to just wrestle and settle with like really deep work, right? How do we do more of that? Because that's where all of our new ideas and innovations and businesses and things come from. So I like that. We have no meeting Fridays. You're supposed to be doing deep work. That's your job on Fridays. Don't take meetings. We automated some of your job. Do deep work on Fridays. Thanks.
Did it make your presentation go faster, better, easier? I assumed it helped.
I think it makes it faster, better. I'm not sure it makes it cooler. I tried using like co-pilots right in the beginning, and I even still try. And there's Gamma, and there's these other ones, and they're pretty cool, but I'm a little picky. But you can give it a prompt and say, give me a PowerPoint presentation that says this, it's this many slides, put in a bunch of data, go find the data. It's great. I just haven't been able to use those.
Your images were beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I like the creative part of just still querying and designing my own images because, it's fun. Still, it's fun. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that the human can relate to the human artistry. I knew immediately, this is AI generated,
Yeah.
I mean, even though the pictures were interesting,
There's something.
it's AI.
Yeah.
It didn't appeal to me the way if it was a real person that had painted it, then I would have connected with that person and, okay, what's this person thinking?
And you can feel it.
Yes.
Like you just can. You just gave me ideas to put into more future presentations. But
Think about how many paintings out there that you don't want to look at.
Yeah.
True. How are we all feeling? Where are we at with time?
it's probably
Is there
a good
more?
time to wrap up, and I think otherwise you could probably go on for another 2 hours.
Oh gosh, we'll never
This
stop.
has been very lively and interesting.
Good, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.